A club record 10 Premier League home wins in a row for Spurs at White Hart Lane, 9 points clear of 6th placed Arsenal, and 2 points gained further on both Liverpool and Man City in what turned out to be a great weekend for Spurs. This is your e-Spurs podcast.
Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs!
Hi guys, welcome back for another hour of talking all things Tottenham Hotspur. You can of course follow us across all the usual social media platforms. We're on Twitter and Instagram at e_Spurs. Catch us on Facebook, facebook.com/e-Spurs page. We're also on YouTube, Pinterest and Tumblr. And for all the links to all e-Spurs platforms, you can head to our brand new website www.e-Spurs.com. On the e-Spurs podcast tonight, we'll be talking about the 2-1 win over Southampton. We'll be taking your questions, as always, and we'll be previewing Burnley away in a fortnight's time. What a show we've got ahead of ourselves. Before we talk all things Tottenham Hotspur tonight, let's introduce the guys that will be taking us through the next hour of the podcast. We've got Paul Smith from the Spurs Odyssey on with us tonight. Paul, how are you?
Hello, yeah, I'm fine, thanks. Good evening, everybody.
And thank you for joining us. I've got Matt Slopes on the line. Matt, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Nice to be here.
And good to have you. Pleased to announce we've got Rob White, the son of John White, on the show. How are you, Rob?
I'm very well, thank you, yeah.
Great to hear. And we've got, as always, our regular Jason McGovern on. Jason, how are you?
Revelling in an ugly win, mate.
It certainly was that. No doubt the first half I thought was, like I say, some of the most glorious football played in the league this season from Tottenham. An absolute joy to behold. Second half not so great. Paul, obviously you're a regular, you go to a lot of the games, you do your own match reports. What did you make of the performance overall?
Well, it was what I describe it as. I mean, it's been described as winning ugly, but it was certainly a hard-fought game, and Southampton made it very difficult for us. Bear in mind the other week when they lost the League Cup final, they made things very difficult for Manchester United, and could be described as unlucky not to come out of that with a trophy. But yeah, Claude Puel's obviously got them very well organised. I thought we did start very brightly. Eriksen's goal was a gem, there's no question about that. But once we went 2-0 up, it just seemed to get a bit harder. There's quite a lot I could say about. I mean, the team selection I thought was got I might be a little bit controversial, but my personal preference would have been for Vincent Janssen to have started. He's more physical than Son, plays better with his back to goal, bit more strength. I appreciate we all know about the goal scoring dilemma, but the man just needs a bit more game time, I think. But there we go. We came out of it with 3 points, and as you said in the intro, it's a great day because others beneath us have fallen further behind. Not least to mention the team in 6th place.
And just sticking with you, Paul, for a second. Obviously, you said yourself there, if it was you looking at the lineup, you would have maybe preferred Vincent Janssen to Heung-min Son.
It's hard not to pick Son because, of course, you know, he did earn his place because he got a hat-trick last week. There's no question about that. But he had a very early chance, which was a good effort and brought a good save from Forster. But he didn't really have much influence, I don't think, after that. And I'd like to have seen Janssen come on a lot earlier than he did. But there we go. How can we really criticise the manager that's got us in 2nd place and in a powerful position for top 4? Yeah,
no, it's a great point you make there. Very hard to criticise. Coming on to you, Rob. I mean, what do you make of the lane at the moment this season? Our longest run there, October 1987, 14 in a row. I mean, absolutely formidable. What do you put it down to at the moment?
I think I think Pochettino's got us playing a really good style. I think he's got the players. The players needed a bit of reprogramming after the AVB years, and I think he's just got that going well. He's got them doing fairly simple stuff. This season it's been quite. I think it's better than last season because of the amount of injuries that we've had and the way we've dealt with them and the way that we seem to have. Although it doesn't, it's not seamless. It's sort of continued quite well. I thought today was a really, really nervous second 45 minutes. It just reminded me of maybe 6 or 7 or 8 years ago. I'm not quite sure what happened. Various things. I didn't quite understand the substitution of taking Son off, pushing Ali further forward, then taking Eriksen further forward. But yeah, all in all, it's fantastic. It's very un-Spurs-like to be sitting here and sitting in the ground and feeling sort of quite confident before a game starts, actually.
Yeah, it is a very unusual feeling at the moment. There's almost that kind of feeling around White Hart Lane that we're going to go into these games and win every single one of them. I mean, there's 4 left remaining. Bringing you in, Jace, can we win the last 4 remaining games? What do you think?
Well, I just want to say, Rob's just said about reminds him of 7 years ago, and I know what he means, but the big difference and what I enjoyed today was that 7 years ago, when we lost control of that second half, we wouldn't have gone on to win that game. Yeah. And I thought, the impressive thing for me today, which is, as I said, why I was revelling in an ugly win, if you like. I've been going there for 40 years, and I've seen us lose control of games, come under pressure, crack under pressure. If we have a little 5-minute spell where we're forced to defend, we couldn't cope, we'd always cave in. And yet this side, we conceded, in the 52nd minute? And from the 52nd minute to the end, it might have been nervy, but Hugo Lloris didn't even have to make anything like a save. And that's what's so different from 7 years ago, 17 years ago, 27 years ago and 37 years ago. That's why I really enjoyed today's win, because I think, we all know that when we play really well, we can play that lovely football and everything's fine, like we did say in those West Brom and Stoke games. But it's games like today that show that you are moving forward as a club. And, today was a Chelsea-style type, a traditional Chelsea-style winner. They just come under pressure, but they don't crack. They don't look like conceding, and they see a game out. And that's what I thought was so impressive about us today. But can we win those next 4? Who knows? It depends. I'll never write any team off. I'll never be so arrogant to say we'll go and win all 4. But, we're in a great place at the moment. And I wouldn't say the glass is full up, but it's a lot more than half full, that's for sure.
It really, really is. And bringing you in, Max, I'm sure you're loving your vlogs at the moment at White Hart Lane, bearing in mind the form. What are you making of it at the moment?
Obviously the other chaps have been able to witness Spurs throughout the years a lot longer than I have. The last few seasons, it's like Spurs have been pushing and just not been able to get there. And this last season and this season so far, was it who was it that mentioned about comparing us to Chelsea? It's like with the final 15 minutes or 20 minutes, we're actually closing it out. And games like today, you go into it very confident, and it's nice to be a Spurs fan and actually have that feeling. Obviously, without Kane, everyone's obviously going to be a little bit optimistic of who's going to replace him and how long's he out for. We need him back as soon as possible. But when you've got players in the team like one of the best centre-backs in the league, as of Toby Alderweireld, Wanyama, how good he's been, and obviously going forward, Ali, Eriksen, Son, they can all score. I mean, they showed it today. We got off to a great start and obviously held out in the end.
Just have interest, Max, from your perspective. Obviously, I know you're very big on the social media kind of front. Mm-hmm. What are you making of it at the moment? Because Spurs at the moment, I know that kind of expectancy now to kind of crack on to finish second. In your opinion, if we don't finish second, is that seen as a disappointment of a season? Where do you stand on that?
It's one of those ones where I don't know whether it's wrong just to think that, but in my head, I'm just thinking we need to finish above Arsenal. I don't know about you other guys, but that's just throughout the years. It's like that's one of the main aspects of Spurs. Finish above Arsenal, get Champions League, and then now Spurs, I mean, even if we were to finish 4th now, that's still Champions League, but I'm sure everyone in this call will be really disappointed with that, and that just shows how we've changed since Pochettino's arrived, sort of thing.
Well, it's 9 points clear of Arsenal at the moment with that extra game played. Bringing it back round to you, Paul. I mean, at the moment you would say that when you look at Arsenal in comparison to Spurs, there's so much contrast there, but I know we've been here so many times. What's your take on it? I mean, I've asked this question a lot this weekend. For me personally, I think we have to get over this mentality of just finishing above Arsenal. You know, we look at that Arsenal side, it's not the same Arsenal team as the Invincibles. I don't think we should just go, it shouldn't be an unbelievable celebration that we finished above them, because it simply isn't a great Arsenal team. It's fairly mediocre. What's your take on it? Is it an importance to finish above them as much as it's been drawn out a lot by the media?
Well, it would be a great bonus, but I am perhaps a somewhat perverse Spurs fan because I mean, all right, we all hate them, but I actually get quite upset about the obsession about them. I mean, I won't watch them on the telly unless I happen to come in and see that they're already 4-0 down, in which case I'll allow myself to watch it. Yes, it definitely is. From this point, 9 points ahead of it at the moment. I know they've got a game in hand, but it would be very, very disappointing, to say the least, not to finish above them. But from my point of view, I think Chelsea are uncatchable the way they're going. I mean, they're 10 points clear of us, and they just don't look like giving up a lead like that. I want to see us make progress from last season and finish second properly this time, which is what we should have done last year, but we just didn't see the season out. So that would be progress, and to qualify for Champions League again would be fantastic. The other thing is I want to see us win the FA Cup, of course.
Yeah,
100%.
Amen, very much so. That cup competition, very important to Spurs. We are going to discuss that on this pod. We will touch upon it because, like I say, we've got fresh guests on tonight, so it'll be good to get their views in terms of the cups. But let's bring it along to you, Rob. Let's talk about today's game. Want to pick out a couple of players for you. Christian Eriksen. 5 of his last 6 Premier League goals have been scored with his left foot. He's actually right-footed. He's got most goals outside the box than any Premier League player since 2013. 10 goals in 3 of his last 4 seasons, and the third time in 5 games which he scored the all-important first goal. Is he underrated at Spurs, or maybe underappreciated? What's your kind of take on him?
I think he's underappreciated, especially by me. I've got to admit, I was on the Spurs show a couple of weeks ago, and I had a bit of a go at Eriksen just because he frustrates the hell out of me. I've got a very logical problem with wasted talent, or not wasted talent. So I was instigating a discussion on if we're being serious as a football club that wants to move forward and get better, which players would we replace at the end of the season? And I labelled Eriksen amongst that. Since when he's been playing fantastically well. So I hope he listened to that and maybe took some note possibly from that. I don't know. No, but in seriousness, I think he's got such potential. It's about like when he scored the shot today. I turned to Chris, who sits next to me, and said, "This is what he should be doing every week." And I know it's easy to say, but I think he's capable of that. I think he just has to start truly believing that. Aside from that, I was really, from negative wise, I was really disappointed in Son. And I know he came on as a sub Janssen, but I thought he did what Son should have been doing all game, which was trying to pull people left and right. Son was running. His movement wasn't great. I know he's a different style of player. And aside from that, I thought the defence were good today. The passing was off. The passing was probably the worst I've seen for quite a while. But like we've already discussed, it's quite nice to win ugly.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, Rob. You mentioned Son. He seems one of these guys that he's great off the bench as an impact player, but sometimes from the start you don't really see the best out of him. What do you put that down to? Because he's a player that seems to frustrate, doesn't he? What do you make of him, Rob?
I like him. I like his energy. I think his energy's great. His technique's great. It might just be a confidence thing. He had that shot in the first 4 or 5 minutes, and if that had ended up in the back of the net, he might have ended up with a hat-trick. But I don't quite know what it is with him. But as you say, he's in danger of becoming a great impact player from the bench.
Yeah, it is an interesting one. Bringing it on to you, Max. Anyone from the game stand out for you? I mean, Dele Alli, another one, a guy here. He's been directly involved in 36 goals in his last 60 Premier League games, 17 goals this season, 11 goals in his last 12 games. I mean, what do you make of this bloke? He's a revelation, isn't he, Max?
He's honestly unbelievable because I won't sit here and lie. When Spurs obviously started to play him, I honestly didn't really know much about him. Now you can look at him and he's up there with the best midfielders in the league, and it's just every game he just seems to, nothing gets to him, and he's still doing these little nutmegs, and it's just how long can he keep it going until, well, let's hope he does keep on going.
Bringing you in, Jason, I know we've discussed a lot on this pod about Dele Alli, Christian Eriksen. What are you making of their contribution at the moment?
Well, I've said Ali for me is just sensational player. Even when he has a quiet game, he still has an ultimate influence on the game and comes up and does something special. And just as much as we'd miss Harry Kane, and we'll definitely miss Harry Kane, don't get me wrong, but if we lost Dele Alli for 6 or 7 weeks, he'd be a big miss. And I think that little triangle Ericsson finds the angles of the pass to Kane. Kane's movement drags defenders with him. Ali goes into the space that defenders vacate, and that little axis works so well. And I think that's the difficulty, I think, for Sonny when he comes in, that he doesn't quite have the same understanding as Kane does with those two. And so it's not just that you miss Kane as Kane the player, but the other two miss feeding off him. But, it was nice to see them both score today, even in Kane's absence. And I think, when you think, everyone will talk about how much we miss Harry Kane, and yet between Ericsson, Ali and Son, he's now scored 41 goals this season. So, when people say you're going to struggle for goals without Kane, 41 goals between those three players. And I think sometimes we don't always appreciate quite what we've got when we do miss one or two players.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point you make there. It's a real high turnover of goals, from players that arguably, by all means, they are meant to be creative players rather than goal scorers, and to get that kind of, range of goals, it's absolutely fantastic.
I think, the other thing, Rick, with Dele Alli, we're all loving the progress that Harry Winks is showing at the moment, and I think every single person is really enjoying the Winks performance. Just his little cameo today when he came on really got control of the game. And then you actually say to yourself, despite how promising a youngster Harry Winks is, he's older than Dele Alli. And that tells you everything. He's crazy.
It really is. Paul, another player that stood out today, I think you might have had him down as your man of the match, if I'm right in saying, on your Spurs Odyssey. Was it Victor Wanyama you had down?
He was, my personal man of the match. I do think, Southampton did give us problems, there's no question about it. And whilst I don't think Lloris was tested as much as Forster was, he still did have to make a couple of saves. And obviously Wanyama's always there to sweep up and support the three behind him. And there were countless times today when he stepped in to win the ball, and that's what he does, game in, game out. And as I do run post-match surveys, and over the course of the season, Victor is very, very close to leading the poll, but there are one or two others that are just slightly nudging ahead of him. But I think he's been a great boon to the side, and maybe he is the one real answer to why we are looking stronger. Someone just said about players that we've been missing, and it's a great point, because currently we're without Danny Rose, who is actually the Spurs Odyssey player of the season so far. And Alderweireld had had a main spell out and another little patch out. Vertonghen, of course, and now Harry Kane. So, and yet here we are. We're still in second, and we're stronger in second, I think, than we were last season. Although I know we were the last ones to challenge Leicester. I still don't think we were ever quite in the hunt.
It's Wanyama and Dembele, that partnership of just seem to just sit in the midfield that allows that magic triangle to do what they can, because they know Dembele and Wanyama are going to be there if obviously there is an attack to sweep it up, and that's why they're so good.
Speaking from a younger generation, Max, is it probably the best defensive you've ever seen Spurs in your lifetime? Is it bizarre going into games and you're not used to seeing this kind of, we're not actually going to concede 2 or 3?
It has got to, because obviously the first few games I started going to, there was the likes of Dean Richards, and obviously
Chris
Ledley
Perry.
King, around that sort of generation, the early 90s was obviously when I was born, and obviously, I've always seen Spurs leak goals, and this has literally been the best defence for years now. It's pretty unbelievable to go to games and feel like you're not going to concede, because you've got the likes of Vertonghen and Alderweireld at the back, Danny Rose, and without him, obviously, you've got Davis stepping in, who I'll have a quick mention, has been brilliant while Rose has been absent.
Yeah, he's played very, very well. Rob, I want to ask you a question. Another player who came on today, I think we've picked up on it, he's not been given much game time. There was an argument if he could have started, Vincent Janssen. He would have been disappointed not to have started, but he came on, and to be fair, he won a couple of crucial free kicks towards the end, didn't he? He did play the time down for us.
Yeah, I thought he was. Spurs fans have got many failings. One of our failings is we are very
judgmental.
Not judgmental. We'll give a striker so much slack that it's happened time and time again. Pavlyuchenko, Rebrov, Soldado, and I think. I hope Janssen's not going to be in the same case. I think whenever he comes on, he looks like he's trying. He's not, I think he's a good player. I think he's one we should persevere with, and I think the fans should just give him a bit more time. And I thought what was nice today was that he did exactly what you've just said. For the last 10, 12 minutes, he forced the centre-backs, both left and right, wasn't afraid to get stuck in and win won a couple of nice free kicks. Aside from scoring a goal, which maybe that's what he's there for, but I think he's definitely worth persevering with.
Do you think he'll be around next season?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a comment, wasn't there? There was an interview with him about 2 months ago saying he'd given himself a year, as in, 2 months ago he'd said a year from now, I'll approve myself, hopefully, to the Tottenham. I think there's obviously been issues because Pochettino's spoken about them. But, I think it's easy for fans to sit there and say, this guy should be doing this. He's reasonably young. He's away from home. Same with quite a few players. I think we just have to give them a bit of time. It certainly happened in my dad's era that players took a little bit of time to settle in. And I think we have to give players a little bit of leeway in this era too.
Yeah, I mean, it always seems to be a bit of a struggle, this sometimes adaptation from, like I say, a foreign league to the English league. I mean, you look at someone like today, Gabardini, fair enough, he went off injured. He seems to be one that has hit the ground running. We're going to come back round. Let's go to you, Jace. You mentioned him briefly, but Harry Winks again came on, didn't do himself any harm. Another nice cameo performance. The composure he's got in his game, you just know when you can bring him on that last 20 minutes, he does seem to be able to bring the game down at his own pace. And at the moment, he is looking like a real gem for the future, isn't he?
Well, the thing I said to my dad when we were watching it, I said, when he comes on, you feel like he's now a genuine first-team player. He's not a youngster that's coming out just for 5 minutes experience. He comes on with a role. You can see him taking that role on board when he's talking on the sidelines to Pochettino. He comes out and he looks like he does exactly what he's been told to do. And within seconds today, didn't he? He took a ball in the centre of midfield, went past three people, played it out wide, made himself available, got the return despite having a clonk on his shin at that stage. And he doesn't shirk a challenge. He got involved in that little spiky moment on the near side, and that's what you want to see. You can see that he's delighted to be in there. You can see that for a young player like that is when you look at the experienced players in the side, the Jan Vertonghen's, the Tobis and that, they've all got total confidence and faith in him as well. They're not looking at this, there's this young kid and he's going to give us a problem. And I think that's the great thing. He's got the instant respects of everyone that he's playing with, and that's to his full credit.
Brilliant young player with a really big future ahead of him. Let's go around to you, Max. Just out of interest, touching base with you, I looked at this starting 11. Do you want to take a guess and tell me, out of the starting 11 we had, how many players on that Tottenham team do you reckon were more than 15 million?
It's tough to think off the top of your head.
Apparently one player was in there that was costing more than 15 million.
Wow.
Really mental.
I'm going to have to take a wild shot at Vertonghen.
Son's the only one. What was Son, 21, 22, something like that, wasn't he?
Yeah. Just wrapping this up, lads. At the moment, we've got 2 more wins, and we're 5 points better off than we were at this stage last season. What I want to ask you guys, just going around the table, is as a whole, what would constitute success for this season? That's kind of bringing in the FA Cup as well. Let's go first. Let's go to you, Paul, being a Spurs fan for so many years. What to you would you say this is a successful season, in your opinion?
Well, I think I said it earlier, basically, and that is to finish second, which is progress on last year, and to win the FA Cup. I would desperately want us to, at the very least, to be in the FA Cup final, which we haven't been there for 26 years, which is quite outrageous. So, I'd like to see us win it. We can win it because we can beat any of the teams that are left in it.
I don't want to be biased, but I think we have been the better team out of the 3 out of the 4 halves we've played them, Paul. Are you going to the game with fear, or do you think we can do them? What do you think?
No. We fear nobody. Spurs that's the strength of the outfit these days. And the joke was made a year or 2 ago about Fergie's old briefings for his players. It's only Spurs lads. Well, that just does not apply. And any of those teams left in the semi-finals, they're entitled to have a lot of respect for us, and I'm sure they do.
No, I can agree with you. And asking the same question to you, Rob, in your opinion, what would constitute success for you?
I think Paul's just hit the nail on the head, actually. Realistically, I'm still of the school that would take an FA Cup win above fourth place. I know it's almost heresy to say that, but I think realistically, looking at the table now, there is really very little reason why we shouldn't finish second. And I think that a cup win will be well overdue. I'm actually following on from what Paul's saying. I'm just wondering whether the players, for a change in mentality, are one step ahead where the crowd are, because it's so indoctrinated over the years with this whole crap Spursy thing, and our expectations aren't possibly as high. Well, our expectations are as high as the players, but I think the players play with more confidence than probably the crowd. Well, I speak for myself.
No, I think that's a good point. I mean, I've seen one or two comments, this is Paul, I've seen one or two comments since the game where, the players seem to have referred to the fact that they saw the game out, and I'm sure you're right that they probably had far more confidence in themselves than perhaps some of us watching did. Because we've watched them for so long and we know what can happen.
Exactly. I thought it was quite interesting at the end. I don't know if you saw, about 5 minutes to go, Lloris was getting the crowd going at the Park Lane, my end. And I've never seen him do that before. And it was almost, I took it as a sign of actually, come on you guys, you start believing and help us out here.
No, there's a brilliant, collective embrace at the moment between the fans and, the players. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen it as positive as it is at Spurs at the moment. I mean, it's fantastic to see. Jace, I know we've spoken about this a lot with you in terms of what constitutes success from your perspective. I know from your end that for you, that finishing in that top four would still kind of, in your opinion, override that FA Cup if you had to choose one. Is that right?
I'd say the top second or I'd certainly want to finish in that top three so that you don't have that Champions League playoff game. And if you, for instance, if you look at the league, if we finish second, we've improved on a place. But for me, even if we finish third, but you finish the season with, say, 6 or 7 points more than last season, which would then give you a record ever Premier League points total. I don't know how you couldn't take that as a successful league season if you've achieved more points than you've ever done in the history of the club before. So, all right, I know that's with 3 points for a win, not 2 points for a win for some of the older listeners. But in terms of the Premier League era, if you finish with 6 or 7 points more than we did last season, then that's even if that means you finish third, I still think you can think that was a reasonably successful season. We all want the trophy, but I just think at this time in our history, like I think, as I said on a previous pod, if it was a normal year, I think I would absolutely want that trophy more than anything else. But I think just in that little period of where that stadium was being built and the fact that we're away for the year and wanting to keep our better players and push for better players, I think just for that little 2 or 3 year period, it's essential that we get Champions League football 2 or 3 years in a row so that we can continue the progress of the club. And I think, if you look at Arsenal, for instance, winning 2 FA Cups, it hasn't actually given them any more credit, has it, than they had before. They're not now seen as a team of winners because they won 2 FA Cups. So, I want that. Don't get me wrong. I want to win that trophy. I'm not disrespecting that trophy or saying it's nothing to be bothered about. But I just think for the period of the club, if you want to become league champions over the next 3 or 4 years, it's more important to stay within that top 2 or 3.
No, that's a fair point there, Jason. I don't think we can argue with that. Coming around to you, Max, just want to ask you a question, obviously from a younger generation Spurs perspective. I imagine you've grown up, being taunted with Spurs, obviously not winning much in terms of trophies and silverware. However, I do get that kind of conscious thing that even younger Spurs fans out there, the epitome is the Champions League, being in that kind of Wednesday, Tuesday night bracket of being able to watch your team on TV, go to the games. Where do you stand on the whole debate about trophy top 4? Starting with obviously the FA Cup. I mean, obviously you need to take it game by game, and I honestly do think we can get to the final. There's no reasons why we can't. We've shown what we can do to Chelsea this season. It's just, I hate that they obviously call it the curse of Wembley. I don't know what you guys think about that, but there's no reason why we can't go to Wembley, play like we have been playing. If we want to win it, Max, we have to do it there. So exactly. We've got in terms of the league, I'm exactly with Paul, because obviously he said second, and I think Paul said second and the FA Cup. Obviously, growing up, I talk as if I've been around for a long time, but the last 10 years, obviously, Spurs getting dominated. It's been a little bit demoralising. Obviously, through social media, I've had to deal with a lot of stick from that. But obviously, you learn to deal with that. And obviously, the team that we've been witnessing in the last season or two
the confidence of every Spurs fan is just like, it's come out of nowhere to, like I said, you go to every game and you think, well, we shouldn't be conceding because we've got this team. And it's crazy how the times have changed, because I'd be biting your hand off of 4th place before a couple of seasons ago.
I mean, it's almost like you said there, it's like Pochettino has raised that level of expectation now to not just accept 4th. And whereas, like I say, I know it's like when you look at the guys down the road, where the chairman there is happy to accept 4th, we've got a manager that, you know, wants more than that, kicks on and wants more than that. I saw today, it's quite funny when you watch the game from today and you saw, I think, Dyer went in with a challenge or whatever, and Harry Winks was tackled and Dyer went straight over. And you can kind of say, well, hold on a second, you know what I mean? It just seems like the team won't be bullied. It's a fantastic, like I say, camaraderie there amongst the squad. It really is great to see. So for you, Max, just very quickly, just to finish up on it, you want that FA Cup and you want, obviously, that top 4 finish. I'd
love the FA Cup, and so if we don't get the FA Cup second, that's our priority. But with the FA Cup, I'm happy with the top 4. And obviously, there's a lot of leaders in this team now. That's like you said about that. If you've got the Toby, you've got the Patognans, the Lloris, they're the sort of players you need. Yeah, and there'll be that argument that all that is really missing now is that first trophy to kind of rubber stamp, you know, Spurs have arrived, like I say, in this kind of era. So what we're going to do, guys, we're going to go for a very quick break, and then we're going to take your questions for tonight's panel. Hi guys, welcome back to the e-Spurs podcast. As you are aware, we ask you to get your questions in every week for the panel. You can do that by simply going to our Twitter handle of @e_Spurs, leaving your Twitter question and simply ending your tweet in #eSpursPod. You always, guys, get into us in your droves, and if we can't cover your question, I'm pleased to say you will get an answer to your question on the e-Spurs website, which is www.e-spurs.com, and those are very kindly answered by our own Jason McGovern, who will kindly respond to your question if he can. Let's start tonight. Let's go to you first, Paul. Got a question here from Cody J. Roy, who says, what were your thoughts on the last 10 minutes against Southampton with the lack of possession and poor decision making?
Well, the last 10 minutes against Southampton, I didn't notice a lack of decision making. I thought our last 10 minutes we looked stronger. I mean, as Max, I think it was, said about Janssen when he came on, you know, he was quite strong and won a few free kicks. And personally, I felt more confident as we closed out the game. Yes, there were some missed passes during the course of the whole game, but no, I can't say I observed that about us at the end of the game today.
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree with you on that. I'm not too sure. I do feel quite calm, which is bizarre at Spurs to feel like that going into a final 10 minutes of a game. Normally it used to be panic stations. Everyone would be kind of biting their nails, but there does seem to be that kind of unreserving, you know...
For all their pressure, Southampton, and they did virtually match us for possession today. Yeah. Lloris had, in my recollection, had 2 saves to make. One was in the first half from Soares, and the other was from Long in the second half, which Lloris just held it clean as a whistle, and he wasn't even really under pressure, to be honest.
I think the closest goal in the last 10 minutes was Vincent Janssen's himself, wasn't it? When Forster made a terrific save.
Forster made a great
save. Let's move it on to you, Rob. I've got a question here from Martin Dolan 101, who asks, will Kane's injury cost us in the long run?
No, I think if it's going to happen, it's happened at a not bad time, basically. We just proved we beat Southampton without him. We beat Millwall without him after about 5 minutes. And we've got an international break, which is great. Then we've got Burnley, which I know we're going to go and talk about. So I think it's not a great time for it to... It's not a great thing to happen, but if it's going to happen, it's a good time for it to happen. And he proved earlier in the season, and actually, as you know, any Spurs fans know that Harry comes straight back in and gives it all from the get-go, really. You know, it's not like one of these guys that's going to take 3 or 4 weeks to get back into the swing of it. So, I think that's succinctly is that if it was going to happen, it's actually not a bad time to happen. Looking at the games we've got coming up.
Yeah, I mean, I know the Sky punditry today, especially Graham Souness, was getting very carried away about, you know, Harry Kane's loss. But I think people seem to forget, you know, we beat Man City without Harry Kane. We were still unbeaten in the team without, you know, within that run without Harry Kane. So, listen, I mean, I think we all will want to say we want him back for the Arsenal and the Chelsea game. There's no doubt about that. But I think we've got to give, like I say, guys like Janssen and Son a chance, don't we?
Souness has got a massive chip on his shoulder about us anyway, so there we go.
Just on the Kane thing, you're right, we got, 3 wins and 3 draws in the 6 games without him, so no defeats, and probably we will miss Harry Kane. I'm not going to pretend we won't miss Harry Kane, but what's been the most disappointing league display that we've had in 2017? Probably I suppose you could say Liverpool, where Harry Kane played, and you could say Sunderland away, where Harry Kane played.
Yep.
So just having Harry Kane in the side doesn't automatically guarantee you the 3 points. We're just as likely to play poorly with Kane in the side sometimes as we are without. So, and as I say, it's Son came in, was man of the match in that Man City game, scored the 2 goals at Middlesbrough, and he got his hat-trick last week or whatever. So it makes a difference without Harry Kane, but we are not just a one-man team, and he's not the be-all and end-all of every single result.
Let's go to you, Jace. I've got a question here from Paolo Yuantasca. Again, Paolo, I hope I pronounced your name right. I know you get in touch with us regular here on the e-Spurs podcast. He asks, Jace, will Janssen finally get his chance with Son travelling with South Korea only a few days before Burnley?
Well, funnily enough, we were talking about that off-air today, weren't we, with the impact of the long-distance flight. I think Sonny will get back to Heathrow about Wednesday, mid-morning on that Wednesday, and we play Burnley on the Saturday. So it wouldn't surprise me if Janssen starts, particularly if Janssen goes away and has a good game with Holland. But I'm still a little bit worried with Janssen. I've said it all the way through, hasn't I, that I still find he plays a little bit too much back to goal rather than side on, and I still think he'll struggle for goals until he solves that problem. Today it wasn't so much of a problem. He comes on for 7 minutes and he was almost asked to do the physical job today. But I think when he starts games, he's got to get himself side on a lot more often than he actually does. And until he does that, we'll continue to see him struggle for goals.
Let's move along to you, Max. I've got a bit of a jovial question here. I think one for the social media one that will like it. I think this is your kind of question. When are plain protests acceptable? And that comes from Steve O'Donnell at Benny Asu O'Donnell. And that comes on the weekend where, hate to mention them, we saw our dear neighbours down the road decide to flow 2 chartered planes over the West Bromwich Albion ground at the weekend. One demanding the manager's demanding respect, the other demanding he goes. Do you ever know when a plane protest is acceptable or not?
I can quite promptly say it's very disrespectful, as much as I'm not a massive fan of Mr. Wenger. But if someone's done all they have for their club, and you have some fans that literally go ahead and do that, you just think, really? I tweeted myself saying how my thoughts on it were, I couldn't believe how disrespectful it was. As funny as it is, I'm not going to sit here and say it's not funny to see, because obviously the players are seeing that. They're getting told about this, so that's affecting all of them in that dressing room, and that could be a reason why they end up. I mean, I'm not saying obviously they wouldn't have lost that game, but it's obviously in their heads. It's going to be even more in their heads now if a decision isn't made soon. But in terms of the actual banners itself, no, I don't think it's on at all. It's funny because I think we've discussed it briefly on this podcast. I think if a Tottenham manager delivered a Premier League title, I think he'd be worshipped for the next worshipped for God knows how many centuries. So it's just it's so hilarious in one way, seeing the kind of protests down the road. I mean, for us, really, we want it to last as long as possible, let it carry on, because it deflects away from the great what we're doing. We want to fly under that radar. Let's bring it on back to you, Paul. I've got a question here from Dave Ellis, who regularly gets in touch with the show. He's at fullback03, who says White Hart Lane has been a fortress this season. If we can just get off to a winning start next season, can Wembley be the same?
Well, we all sincerely hope so. We have actually managed to win at Wembley this season, of course, beating CSKA at home, let's hope that we can do the job. But it probably is still going to be tricky, because every team that comes and plays at Wembley wants to perform out of their skin, so that makes it all the more difficult. So I can't be over positive in answering that question, but just live in hope.
Fingers crossed. I mean, like I say, it's 7 defeats in our last 8, so if we do have aspirations of winning the FA Cup, we're going to have to somehow abolish those kind of thoughts. And let's bring it back around to you, Rob. Couple of things again. I know we've kind of discussed about the team lineup from today, but a question here about substitutions. Teddy Walsh at TW Preston 21, who says Janssen looked very bright and more confident than he used to. Should he come on a little earlier, around 70-75 minutes, if you want him to make the difference?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think it would obviously help his confidence. Yeah, that's the basic answer to that one, I think. I'm of the opinion I'm not going to sit here and question Pochettino because, like we've alluded to already, the guy's given us so much that actually, why should we question it? I give him enough credit to think that he can manage Janssen in the way that he thinks he's going to get the best out of him, or he's going to use him for the best for Spurs. Probably the long haul. So I've got faith in Poch.
Very quickly, sorry, Rob, on the substitution question, a couple of players I want to mention to you. George Kevin Nkudu, no one seems to know where he's gone, and Mr. Sissoko. What do you make of those two players very quickly? I know we've not really got much to talk about because they haven't featured recently. Have they got a Spurs future in your opinion?
Yeah, well, I'd hope so. I think that's one of the things that we're possibly lacking is a change of pace. Personally, I would stick with George rather than Sissoko, who's got a frustrating habit of just running very, very quickly, very straight, and overplaying the ball. But
No, I agree with you. And finally, last question tonight, we're going to come to you, Jace. A couple of questions here. We've got Elliot Alter and Tashi C. The reason why I'm putting these together because they seem to be of the same kind of ilk. They're saying, opinion on Son, I find he wastes far too many opportunities, would give Janssen a full 90, and why can't Son make quicker decisions? I think we've been here before, haven't we, with Son? We seem to be kind of going this kind of revolving circle every couple of weeks. He has a great game when he comes on, we then start him, he fails to perform. It does seem like a cycle here, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, and we all know that the inconsistencies that are in Sonny's game. But why do we see him more than Vincent Janssen? Well, 14 goals against 5, of which 4 are penalties, is the answer to that, isn't it? For me, it's up to Vincent Janssen to be putting more pressure on Son to force the decision the other way. To be talking about how inconsistent Son is and how much he frustrates and things, and we're still sitting there with him on 14 goals. That's why he's in the team when Kane's missing. It's as simple as that. He's just the more likely one to score the goals.
I think we have to persevere with him because his goal ratio tells you the guy will get goals that change his game. So most certainly a player in there. Let's move on, guys. Let's go to the preview of the Burnley game. Let's go back round to you, Paul. I mean, Burnley at the moment, they're sitting in the league 13th. You would say they look like they're going to possibly escape that kind of relegation battle. It's going to be a tough game up there, isn't it, at Turf Moor? They've got quite a good home record.
They have, and in fact, they're quite well placed. I mean, on their terms, where are we? They've got 32 points, so they're 8 points above the bottom 3, which is a fair gap, but they'll want to keep picking up the points, and Sean Dyche has done an excellent job with them, there's no question. They have got a good home record, but they haven't got such a good record recently in terms of the games they've been playing. I've just noticed they haven't won in about 7 or 8 games. One reason for their dip in form could be the fact they've had to play 4 consecutive away games, and that's because they did Liverpool a favour earlier in the season and switched the game. So when we go there, it is going to be tough. It's always a tough place to go. It's a bit of a cliche. There's no easy games in the Premier League. But we're just going to have to wait and see if we get everybody back from the international break in good condition, and I'm sure the players will be going for it. Another just point I'd like to make about the players, we mentioned about how they probably feel more confident than we as fans do. Don't forget, in the players' minds, they are still going for the Premier League title, despite that 10-point gap. In their heads, that is still their target, and they're not going to give up on that until they absolutely have to. So they'll be going there in the right frame of mind, and I don't think there's going to be a bunch of goals in that game, but we can win it.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough venue, but you'd like to think Spurs, in terms of the quality we've got, you think we'd have enough to overcome them. Coming to you, Rob, tough game, isn't it going to be up there? I mean, what's your thoughts on it? You would think Spurs, with the form we're going into, that should be a game we should turn up and get the 3 points.
Should be. I think I might be right in saying that the last couple of results up there have been draws. So it is a tough place. Spurs results up there have been a couple of draws. Yeah, tough, I think, but I reckon it will be a really good opportunity to stick Janssen in from the start. I don't know if you will or not, but that would be my thoughts behind it.
Yeah, well, if he's going to get confidence in terms of goals, he's going to have to get starts, isn't he, you'd think, because bringing him on with 5-10 minutes to go, it's very hard to ask the player to make a difference. I mean, we saw today his great ability was to kind of hold up the play. get some fouls, waste the time which he done. You can't really ask more than that in the last 10, but you'd like to think he's going to have to start games, isn't he, Rob, in order to kind of make a difference?
Exactly. And I know we've touched on it already today that he's got to turn his body a little bit more side on and get involved that way. But yeah, I think the Burnley game would be quite a good game for him to put himself about.
Bringing it to you, Max, what do you make of it up there? They may look at the game as a free hit. Big team coming down to their ground. Nothing to lose, really. They can go for it, can't they?
Well, that's it. I'm just looking at, obviously, the form. And Burnley, last 6, if this is correct, lost 2 draws, 2 losses and a draw. So they haven't won in the last 6. But, as you said, they got the 4th best home form. And that's quite mind-blowing, considering those last 6 results that I've just said. In terms of, obviously, Kane won't be about. Son, like you said, Janssen, I'd love to see Janssen, because obviously we're not going to see a Kane sort of performance from him. He's a physical player, and that's what I think he will do well. Because obviously,
there'd be an argument.
You
think Max, there might be an argument, Max, he might hold the ball up better than Son? I think that might have been a critical thing of Son today, that he didn't really hold the ball up.
Yeah, most definitely. We've seen him obviously come on in the last 10 minutes, even if he gets that, if he's lucky, and he draws fouls, and it could be one of those games where he draws fouls, and there's a lot of talking points with Janssen, but we know he can do that job. It's just, can he get into the habit of getting in the right position? Because he does like to drift out wide to get the ball, because he doesn't see it centrally, and that's obviously a lot of his fouls on him are committed. But there's no reason why obviously we can't go there. We look very strong. Burnley at home, it's going to be a good game. It's a tough one to call. Yeah,
it really, really is. And Jace, bringing it over to you, just want to ask you a question. We saw the Sunderland game earlier in the season where it was a really, really down 0-0. My only nagging concern at the back of my mind is there still that kind of performance in us away from home, or do you think that was simply a one-off?
Well, it wasn't. It was a really poor performance on the night, but let's be fair, how many away games have we won this year? Is it 2 or it's only, 3 or... What is it in the Premier League? How many away wins? Watford, Southampton, Borough. It is time to go away and put a real marker down and put in a really good away performance. And it's also time we did it at Burnley, because I think, as Rob said, last time was that horrendous 0-0 draw when... Was it Paulinho almost fell over the ball trying to shot the corner flag? I think the time before that, weren't we 2-0 up there and ended up losing 3 or 4-2 because they got relegated.
And that was with the Modric and the Bales in the team.
Yeah, Modric, we'd just got in the Champions League and then threw away a 2-goal lead, didn't we? We had that horrendous cup tie when we took a 4-1 or a 3-1 lead or something like that up there in a semi-final when they were a 3rd division team and almost made a mess of it. So it's time to go to Burnley in more than one way and lay the credentials on the table and say, right, they're one of the few teams that took points off of Chelsea in that recent run. I think they drew 1-1 with Chelsea up there
1-1,
and deserved their draw. Played very well on the day, so it certainly won't be easy. And they gave us a tough game at White Hart Lane, in fairness, when they took the lead. So Sean Dyche will get that side well drilled, and then it will be, let's hope we get enough players back from that international break with no injuries, and if we go there with the right frame of mind, then I'm sure the quality will show through. But they're the type of side that you've got to be 100% switched on to play up there. Otherwise, they can give you a nasty shock.
Certainly a free hit for Burnley, isn't it? I mean, they've got nothing to lose at the end of the day. It doesn't look like they're going to go down. So, and like I say, they're not contesting for a top 10 finish. So it really is going to be, like I say, for them a free hit. Let's go around the table and get some predictions. Let's start with you, Paul. If I had to push you for a score, what would you go for?
2-0.
And Rob, coming to you, what would you go for?
2-1. 2-1.
Okay, 2-1 to us. Okay, good. And Max?
I've been a fan of the 3-1 prediction this season to us.
Okay. We're sticking with that 3-1?
Yeah.
Okay, nice one. And Jace, what do you think?
I'll do the 2-0 as well.
2-0, okay, yeah. I think I might join you 2-0. Let's fingers crossed we get the result up there. And like I said, we've got a 2-week break now, so it seems bizarre. We can kick back. We can see us in second. We've got 9 points clear of Arsenal, 2 points clear of Man City, 3 points clear of Liverpool. It's been a really good weekend, hasn't it, chaps, in terms of the results for us. We couldn't have asked really for much more. Just out of interest, in terms of, like I say, this closing period now of the season, what are our thoughts in terms of that second place? Is it ours to lose now? What do you think, Paul?
Yes, it's exactly the expression that I was. I was thinking of using exactly that expression in my match report, but then I opted out of that. But that was in relation to top 4. I wouldn't want to be quite so presumptuous. So, second place is definitely not ours to lose. There's still a challenge on there because there's 1 or 2 games in hand to be played. But bear in mind that in a couple of weeks the Gooners play Man City, so there's going to be more points dropped there. So we've just got to keep winning, and we'll be there without question.
What are you thinking, Rob? You're confident for that second spot? Do you think we can get over the line?
I think I'm just looking at the fixtures. We've only got to play Arsenal and Man U at home. They're the only 2 in the top
10, I think it is, top half.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Which has never stopped us before, has it?
The only worry with that, you'd say the only worry with that, guys, you would think that the teams at the bottom are all going to be fighting for their lives. That's the only concern, isn't it? That we're going to be fighting teams that are all around us. But we've got to go, I think we've still got West Ham, haven't we, away from home. I mean, I know from them they're not having a great form there, but you think they're going to be up for that, wouldn't you, West Ham?
Yeah.
You look at Leicester away. Leicester away looks an entirely different fixture now than it did, 2 or 3 weeks ago, didn't it? Swansea away will be a tight one as well. They're battling away.
No guarantees. What do you reckon, Rob?
Obviously, I'd absolutely love it. I don't know.
It's just nagging, is it? Max, what do you think?
I'm looking at the fixtures here myself also, and it's those next 2, Burnley, Swansea. Obviously, they're away from home. It's like, get them out of the way, get the victories, and then you've got 2 at home where obviously we're very confident. And then it's like you've got a little triple threat in the Gooners, West Ham and United. So it's going to be very interesting. But is it Spurs' to lose? I do feel like that is a big question because it's so tight at the moment. And
Jason, what do you think? Ever the optimist?
I don't know about ever the optimist. We're in the advantage at the moment, but I'm old-fashioned, mate. It's just about, there's 2 weeks before we play Burnley. There's a hell of a lot can happen in that 2-week period. So let's just go to Burnley, pick up 3 points, and then concentrate on the next game. And if we continue to win every single game, then second is ours, and that's as simple. But I think we will drop points, but. I think as Rob just said, there's a lot of games that you got Chelsea playing Man City, you got the Manchester derbies to come, Liverpool, Everton coming up, Man United, Everton coming up, and you can't quite rule Everton out, even putting pressure on those clubs. So I'm not saying they'll put pressure on us, but they're still in that mix where they can take points from the other clubs. So there's a lot of work still to be done before I'd sit there and say second is our place.
Still a lot of work to be done. Hopefully there'll be an FA Cup at the end of it, fingers crossed. Guys, that is all we've got time for tonight. Rob, I want to thank you for coming on.
Pleasure.
Do you just want to quickly give a plug for the book you've got out? I know you've had it out for a while, but bearing in mind it is the closing of White Hart Lane this season. I'm sure some of these guys out there would love to get their hands on the book. Do you just want to say what the book is and how they can get hold of it?
Yeah, sure. I co-wrote a biography of my dad, which is called The Ghost of White Hart Lane. You can get it online on Amazon. Get it on good bookshops. Can I give a quick plug to... I also contributed... There's a really good book which celebrates the final season at the Lane, which is called The Lane, which is available at the Spurs shop. I'm a photographer, and I've done about 8 or 10 pages at the back of that, which I'm especially proud of. So that's it.
Like I say, it would be a fantastic read now. I'm sure, like I say, a lot of the stuff now more relevant than ever with White Hart Lane coming to its closing end, we assume, at the moment. Paul, from the Odyssey, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to speak to you all.
And it's been great to have you with us. And Max, thank you as always for your time this evening.
Excellent. Thank you very much for having me.
I hope you haven't stopped you doing your vlogging and your YouTubing. I hope you keep that up.
Cheers, mate.
No problem at all, no problem. And Jace, thank you as always for your time.
No problem, mate. Pleased to be on.
No, fingers crossed, guys. We're going to be back, hopefully, with a special e-Spurs extra time feature in the international week. So hopefully you won't lose us for 2 weeks. We'll be back with a very special feature that will be coming on soon. So keep an eye on our Twitter page for more, at @e_Spurs for that. And that will hopefully be coming to you guys across in the near future. And the last thing for me to say, as always, is come on, you Spurs!
Everybody cherishes, and we won't